Enter madman, stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. The curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of light spinning from their mouths. Start looking, listen for a little while. Attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow bathing in your blood. It's never enough.
Earlier. I was doing some experiments earlier. There we go.
It's still going.
The music is still going. Oh dear. All right. I'll have to go back and fix that. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Sunday, April the 23rd, 2023 for the third time. I am Cliff. This is Tim. This is Dustin, and we're coming to you live from Carter County.
That opening segment was intentional. It was for the AI and the robots in the crowd.
Yeah, we got to draw everybody in.
Native tongue.
Yep. So go like the video. Caress Dustin's the bell there around Dustin's area. Get you subscribed, notified. Yes, get notified when we go live. We'll have a lot of good times. Do it on the strum with the death dulcimer there. All right. Hey, Grandmaster. Hey there, Alvin. Sounds like a fax machine. No, these were these crazy little ribbon mics I was trying to use earlier, and I forgot that I had them hooked up. So I had to go back to our standard setup, and there we are now. I'm glad we're coming through. I have to go back and chop this up a little bit in the in post, get that settled up. Use the webcam audio, but yeah, sorry about that.
Not, and let's just have fun with it.
No, I think we got it now. Yeah, I just don't know how many people will sit through it at the very beginning of it if they're trying to watch the video, but it's happened before. It'll happen again, even on the for the pros out there.
Our grand scale of
Yep.
Yeah.
Our setup here.
Yeah.
Once upon a time,
our big crew.
Yeah.
These problems may still happen every once in a while.
I don't like the idea that everybody values the French's idea of, I don't know, somehow like the French have been pedestalized over the last few years as being wise beyond everybody else because of the whole chop and all that stuff and taking out leaders and stuff. But I'm not saying they're not. I'm like 9% Francais, so that would help me out if they were, somehow ahead of the curve genetically. But I found out within the last couple of days, I don't remember which day it was, as I have no political opinion about what they're doing. But I do have an opinion about this. Did you know that once upon a time, the potato was illegal in France?
I had no idea.
And that's stupid.
Why was it illegal?
Because they were convinced that it was poisonous. There's no way something that came out of the ground could be good for you or something like that. So.
Yeah, they called them pomme de terre, is what they said, which means apple of the earth. And
I found that out by looking
literally
up old school cooking methods and stuff, and I found a French potato recipe.
Was it
like,
secret?
These used to be. No, it's at one point after the prohibition of the potato. They this is funny actually. They legalized it, and they were trying to get people to come eat the potato because they were like, look, we need more people to eat. We live in some old time period like the 1500s where people eating tree bark. We need to find a way to feed peasants. Potatoes seems like a good idea, but people wouldn't eat it because the same thing was prevailing. Nothing that comes out of the ground could be good for you. So what they did was they took a bunch of royal land, tilled it up, planted only potatoes, and they set guards up during the day. That way at nighttime the peasants would sneak in and dig up the potatoes thinking that they were worth more than they were, and it turned the people on to the idea of the potato. Thank you. What is some kind of cooking show I'll try to plug later because I thought that was a good story.
That's pretty good. Well, to take us back to the 1500s, did you know that stories of unexplained cattle mutilations go on back to at least 1606, and they have kind of been a constant in the news throughout since then. There's been a recent string of them that happened down in Texas that made the news. I put the links in the description from the Dallas Morning News and from the Blaze. But that was this is going to be the topic of our show tonight, and it's kind of crazy how long this has been going on and how kind of, I don't know if it's just we're so accustomed to crazy stuff now that doesn't even, but it was a big deal back in what in the world is this?
Silly.
It's John Mack
From the Blaze. John McAfee's coming back. Yeah, was I think it's the anniversary of his death yesterday, or maybe it was today. And his wife had posted that his remains still hasn't been released to her. No autopsy report or anything about any. She's just completely left in the dark about the circumstances of his death. But this down in Texas, according to the Blaze and the Dallas Morning News, officials in Texas are bewildered by several cattle that mysteriously had their tongues and genitalia removed. There was no blood or signs of struggle anywhere near the dead cattle. 6 cattle found dead under mysterious circumstances across Madison County, Texas. And there was started with a longhorn 6-year-old laying on her side, deceased and mutilated. And they said it was a straight, clean cut with apparent precision, had been made to remove the hide around the cow's mouth, leaving the meat under the hide, removed hide untouched. The tongue was completely removed from the body with no blood spill. The police noted there were no signs of struggle, footprints, or tire tracks near the mutilated animal. And no predators or birds or scavengers would take the mutilated animal. And that was the same they found later with 5 other cases across the county. So that follows a similar pattern to things we've been hearing since the 1970s. That's when it really came into the news again, worldwide. But if you go back over the decades, it's been going on forever. Yeah, that's anti-Irish about those taters there, Alvin. It's anti-Russian too, because how the Russians supposed to make his vodka. Mm-hmm. But I think you can make vodka with about anything, can't you? As long as you distill it right to where it's pure enough.
I mean, really, if you're distilling something, it just changes what the name of it is. You do the same distilling process to. What is rum? Is it coconut? Is it pineapple?
It's brown sugar or molasses.
Is it cane sugar? So I mean, it's like just distilling process. Potato, suddenly it becomes vodka. Corn is moonshine. Human feces is called jenkem. But hopefully you're only doing that in prison.
Well, let's go to the Wikipedia article here for cattle mutilation. It's also known as bovine excision, or unexplained livestock death, or animal mutilation, and it's a worldwide phenomenon to all kinds of different animals.
The grindcore band that's taking that bovine excision.
I don't know. Cattle decapitation. They're kind of an anti-meat band, aren't they? Isn't that why their name is that? Anti-farming industry or something like that. I always liked their music. I didn't understand any of the lyrics to it, and nor did I really care. It was pretty good. Kind of, I don't know, hardcore or something, deathcore.
They're a mixture of like death metal and grindcore.
Yeah.
I never got into the
Some
bands
melodic
that would just
stuff in it too. I like them.
the
A
bands
lot of
that
breakdowns and squeals.
the bands that are over the top that are into a cause always got on my nerves. Like Job for a Cowboy, who just really were trying to get more cowboys employed.
Oh, is that right?
No. That'd be funny if it was. Tired of these people discriminating against cowboys. We need more cowboy jobs in America.
Oh, you got me. Oh, shit. Well, like I said, we have at least recorded cases back to 1600, and the city of London and some of the shires adjoining whole slaughters of sheep, some places up to 100, and others less, where nothing's taken from the sheep but their tallow and some inward parts. The whole carcasses and the fleece are remaining behind. And that was back in when James the First of England ruled, and Charles Fort collected many accounts of cattle mutilations that occurred in the late 19th and 20th century, according to Wikipedia. He mentioned investigating animal mutilation cases in 1966 that were being reported in the upper Ohio River around Ohio. So I found this other article, though, go all the way back to 1975 to the New York Times archive, and hopefully we'll be able to read it. I could read it on my phone. Let's see if we can
All these attacks are
open it in a new tab. Well, that's one thing that a lot of people suspected. I can't read it getting on here, but I could read it on my phone. But here you can see it's a New York Times page from 1975, and it's talking about 11 states baffled by the mutilation of cattle, and it was not only the Midwest and Southwest, but that's where it was in particular, but all the way up in New England as well. And it was mostly cattle, but some horses and sheep and other animals too. And there's been a lot of explanations for it. A lot of people say it was predators. You go back to Ireland in the 1600s, and they were saying they had a whole bunch of people confessing to being werewolves, and that they had eaten the sheep because they had transformed into a werewolf and eaten the sheep. But it was a similar situation. You had bloodless kills. You had really precise, clean removal of organs. In particular, the rectum and anus and the sexual organs. A lot of times the meat, or almost always the meat, was left intact, and sometimes they'd peel away a section of hide. And this phenomenon continued on and started really getting documented in the 1970s. I mean, it's kind of been documented as well as they could throughout history, but in the 1970s, they started doing a lot of films and a lot of video recording, and Linda Moulton Howe made a video called Strange Harvest, I think was the name of it, where she
was into booms there for a little while.
Well, it's oddly enough, we're going to talk about booms tonight when we get towards the local section of our
because we like the cars that go boom.
That's right. But I go back to even from
the boom. I forget the line in between there. I just had to say it in my head.
Right. Well, from the New York Times to modern times, even here's NPR. I had a Fox News article from 2022. I didn't pull it up just because it seemed to be, just piling on. But here's another one from NPR. I was going to show you got both sides of the political spectrum. Fox News, NPR. There's one thing I can agree about: cattle mutations. Look at this one. This freaking deflated cow. Its hide is there.
They both agree on it. That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like when Democrats and Republicans agree on something, you need to be suspicious of it, right?
Well, this just makes me think it's just not planted.
Not planted.
Yeah. Well, okay, for example, if we're in Vietnam and we declassified that at one point in time we were trying to scare them with speakers on the bottom of airplanes to think it was their sky gods.
Mm-hmm.
And we were leaving their dead people around with vampired up bodies to make it look like they were killed. What's it to us to think that every now and then they just don't leave some dead cows laying around and say we're so confused going, why are all these dead cows laying around in this weird way?
Well, that was one of the things that they discussed in Strange Harvest was...
Or it's a chupacabra. I'm open to both.
Yeah, now there is the, what do they call that thing? The goat sucker?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Chupacabra. Yeah.
So it supposedly sucks all the blood out of its victims.
It can suck the liver and organs out as well through the incisions.
So similar kind of thing there. Kind of attributed to these animals that are these animals laying around were attributed to a lot of times something like a chupacabra, or there was commonly a spacecraft reported being seen, and this was or some kind of something flying. And if you go back to a lot of these stuff, like again, I'll mention the Strange Harvest documentary. Linda Moulton Howe, she interviews judges, chief of police, sheriffs, who put their credibility on the line to report that they had seen these things flying around the areas that on the nights that these cattle were mutilated. And these guys seemed like very sober, very they didn't just want it to be aliens. Like, in fact, they really wanted to find out what it was, and they looked at like satanic cults. They looked at like all kinds of different stuff. The locals were like, yeah, there was some kind of sex cult over from the university, and they all agreed.
They always happen near
Yep,
Ivy
that's
League
what it
universities?
was. That's a good question, but no, they
because
don't.
now I'm thinking that maybe it's just because like you get these crop circle people. Most of those end up being like math students or professors that are really geeky and they want to do some complicated designs using calculus or whatever form of.
Well, there were some of those that were, and then there were others that, and again,
and then there were others where they just didn't catch the professor because he was too smooth.
either he had a better technique, or there was something that actually landed there. But yeah, some of those really complex patterns.
I mean, we got
are pretty
some sick
amazing.
people in the world that like Skull and Bones stole Geronimo's skull. Who's to say that there's not some weird medical school out there that's not part of the hazing ritual is to leave a dead cow somewhere with its dick cut off?
Yeah.
Well, males or females?
Bull. A bull.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
no,
does
okay.
happen with bulls too.
Okay, well, the dick's missing on the cow anyway. A cow
No,
laying around
that does happen on the
with
bulls
its
though.
uterus pulled out because I guess they said the genitals, so we're just going to go with that.
They would say
Bull.
that. They a lot of times they would remove the uterus or the udders. A lot of times they would
Nips.
remove the nips. A lot of times they would remove the tip of the bull's penis and leave everything else intact. And no other animals. That's a pretty common thing. No other animals would
But a
touch these things.
bull penis is sort of like a bull penis. A bull penis is like a dog's though, like a rocket, right? Like so they would like to have to
Well-
get down in there and like pull out the.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
all
they
other
they
mammals
cut the tip
besides
of it off.
humans
It's
Yeah.
everything
Have
cut
a
out.
dick bone.
There was a old man.
Nope.
There was an old man that we used to know when I was a kid, and he made walking sticks. Dude made walking sticks out of bull penises, and they looked like they were made of wood.
They're nasty.
Yeah, I always thought they were wood, and their mom's like, no, it's a
They
bull.
just
That's a
are.
bull penis.
You wrap some around those twigs to get them good and stiff.
And then there's like old people that hunt raccoons that have like, they look like they always have these picks in their hand
Yeah.
to pick their teeth, so they're picking their teeth with their dick bones.
Yep. Well,
Use the finger bone, use anything. But,
well, it's not sharp like the dick bone.
all right.
It just pokes right in there just right for them.
Well, a common thing though about these things is there was no
But no
cracks.
dick bones left behind.
No.
Every dick bone was stolen.
Every dick bone was picked clean. No, there was no evidence of any kind of gleaning, and so this led some people to say, well, this could be some kind of bacteria eating this thing away. And they did, in fact, do some experiments where they would leave a cow out dead in the field a few days, and then they'd come back, and it would have injuries similar to that. Now, when I was a kid, I had a little bunny in a cage outside, and it got some sort of infection in its head. I don't remember what it was. Probably one of those ear things, boll weevils, maybe. I can't remember what they're called. But anyway, that damn thing. Like one day my bunny had a head, and then the next day it didn't have a head. It worked fast, but it was still alive. But it was pretty wild. So I could definitely see something like that being involved in some of the cases. And so you've got mixed results from some of these. So apparently it is possible for a farm animal or a ranch animal to end up dead in the field and have parts of it removed by parasites, bacteria, other different kinds of organisms, flies. But a lot of times in these cases, that doesn't happen, but you have more, precision cuts. You don't really have that from the bacteria, although you do have some of the same things removed. But you have precision cuts. You have like charring and burning around the cuts, as if leads some people to believe it's made with a laser instrument.
Advanced.
Yep.
Such like that. The thing is, with no blood, bodily fluid spilled, even like you said, the ones that are done back in the 1600s, I said they were clean cuts, no blood.
Yeah.
Especially if you look at it, if they, from older things, if you looked at like medical technology, how it was not very pretty, especially before the 20th century.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, they're making these, they say, no, someone's made these weird precision cuts on a cow with no blood.
Yeah.
When, yeah.
Well, and a lot of people made the point that once an animal dies, if it's been dead for long enough for the blood to congeal and drain into the organs, then you can cut into it, and if gravity works on it, it'll all go to pull to one side of the body, so you can't cut into it without having blood. But a lot of these were like, these people would drive by and check the cattle first thing in the morning, and then they'd come back to feed them, and there'd be a dead cow there that wasn't there a couple hours before, and it's already had this done to them. There's a lot of cases like that. And then some of these, when they take them to the veterinarians, they're like, okay, this is predatory animal. But then other times, it's like, no, this does look like sharp tools. Hey, Anna, glad to have you back with us. Yeah, my poor bunny.
It's the equivalent of a horsehair worm. We just don't know what it is.
Yeah, it was something like that. I had to go
Something coming out.
had to go borrow a revolver from my neighbor to put it out of its misery.
I'm saying cattle manipulation. Or
Oh.
mutilation. All the cattle mutilation is like a horsehair worm. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
coming out.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
That's why
okay,
they're all
gotcha.
chewed up by the time they get there is because this thing's been eating them for a while.
Well, that's pretty much the way the bunny was, and that you could be onto something there. Alvin says cattle mutilations are rapid, unplanned disassembly, and I like that. But that's
Maybe that's how chupacabras are. They're like horsehair worms. They pop out of the cow and then I don't know.
Maybe they're
I
like
what they
some
eat
little
after
like
that though.
I got these
They have
though.
some sort of metamorphic stage to where they're somehow impregnated into. They're like chest bursters.
Yeah.
Well, I got these from the FBI. This is from FBI.gov's website, and this
They're
is
underground after. That's why we don't see them. Where they live for
They're
15
graboids.
years and then emerge as Bigfoot.
well. These there's reports of a lot of times too
Graboids.
mutilated livestock. Though people would report helicopters drowned. And one of the funny things about these helicopters that they found is a lot of times these helicopters were reported as being silent helicopters.
Mongolian death worms.
Mongolian death worms.
I've never heard of it.
Or something like that. They're like these things are almost kind of like how the graboids were described. It might be something else, but it's like I'm pretty sure Mongolian death worm. If you look it up, it'll bring
I'm
it.
going to type in Mongolian death worm. It's going to be funny.
Well, we kind of have to look it up here for everybody now.
I'm thinking of the words.
Sometimes.
It auto-corrected when I was talking Mongolian death. Let's see here.
Oh, yeah.
A large intestine
Yeah,
worm,
looking thing.
and it's proposed to exist in the Gobi Desert. Let's see if we can get us a picture of it. Oh, that's a sand boa, and they say that may be the prototype of the legend. Here's an interpretation of it, artist rendition.
Makes me think of the sandworms off of Dune.
Mm-hmm.
Spice.
That's kind of where they, I think,
Maybe where they got the idea for the
Yeah,
sandworms from Dune.
Mongolian death worm.
Probably.
Death rises from deep below. It's got a pretty interesting, well, more like a Langolier mouth.
This work is free and may be used by anyone, and we don't have to license his work or attribute the artist. So thank you, Peter Dirks, Belgian painter, for making that available to us. But that's their Mongolian deathworm, the trimmer. So maybe there's something like that inside the cattle. Who knows? The FBI though, they did find. You were asking, who's to say that our enemy countries aren't running ops on us, kind of like we did in Vietnam with the psyops, with the leaving the vampire teeth marks in people's necks and things like that. This was something that people considered too. They looked at it. They reckon there's no silent helicopter, so they figure these things are some other kind of vehicle, some kind of military, some kind of extraterrestrial craft is about what they have narrowed it down to. That has to be one or the other. And one of the reasons that they were ruling out military is that they couldn't see a purpose for it. They couldn't understand why a military might do that. But I think there's a lot of reasons, and just because you don't understand it and that doesn't seem like a good reason doesn't mean you can rule it out. But the FBI actually did investigate this for quite a bit. The X-Files did some stuff on it, and a lot of the X-Files was actually, at least for the first season, was actually
Programming of the mainstream.
well, it was actually those were actually real cases. They're based on real cases. The first season of it, a lot of them were, and they kind of, according to Chris Carter, they kind of put the kibosh on that after the first season. They're like, we're really not going to, we really can't have you release any more of this stuff. So they continued the storylines, and some of this stuff was, but they couldn't let them get quite as close as they did on the first season, apparently, according to Chris Carter. And John D'Souza is the FBI agent who was actually, he was the real life Mulder. If you ever wanted to check his stuff out, he's got a lot of interviews online. John D'Souza does. But this, the FBI actually has all their release up here. The stuff they're investigating, they're talking about, if you can see right here, they're talking about that it's related to helicopters, UFOs, that all these reports happen at the same time. They're checking it out with all these different, wildlife experts, all the best people that the FBI could get. They were sending them out to look at this stuff, and they were all real inconclusive. Nobody could really come to. They found about half of them that they determined were eaten by predators, and about half that appeared to be sharp tools. And so there was not really a consensus, other than they investigated it for a really long time and didn't really come up with an answer, as far as I can tell. Now they do. I don't know how many documents they have here. About 100 pages here of letters and findings and stuff that they did. I included the link to it in the description if y'all want to check it out. But they were taking it seriously and put a lot of resources into trying to get to the bottom of it. And according to this, they never really could. So if you're interested in that, check it out. It's a pretty cool read. But that gets us to stuff like modern, you got Skinwalker Ranch, which became, famous over the last 10 years in particular. So there was a lot of mutilation supposedly there for the previous owner, the guy who's got it now. And, they were well documented. If you watch any of those, the History Channel program.
And for all you city slickers, if you ever come to the country and you hear a random person tell you to come in the woods at night, don't.
Yeah, it's probably not a good idea.
Skinwalker.
Even if it's not a skinwalker, it's probably not a good idea. Like, somebody who's inviting you to come into the room, if you just get into town and somebody's inviting you into the room or woods in the middle of the night.
What's going to happen is two things. You're either getting trafficked, or somebody's about to ask you to hold the flashlight while they finish getting this catalytic converter off this car, off this Honda. Hand it to me through the window.
I'll say the second's more likely. Oh, well, back in February, there was a U.S. Air Force general overseeing North American airspace, and this was back when they were talking about all the balloons. How quick we forgot about that, huh? All the balloons and the Chinese spy balloon, and they were starting to say, oh, these things could be extraterrestrial. They're unidentified. And then they asked this general, if he ruled out extraterrestrial origin, and he said, I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure out that. I haven't ruled out anything. So he's not ruling out extraterrestrial, even though one of them was a hobby balloon by I forget what their name was, like North Illinois Balloon League or something like that. And one of their balloons had gone off course, and they'd reported it, and that appeared to be one of the ones that was shot down. And anyway, they're just flying around shooting, missiles at hobby balloons without identifying them. They don't even know what that is. Like, I'm sorry. If it was a hobby balloon, they should be able to tell what it is. They wanted people to think they were doing work after they'd let that one go all the way across the country and, been embarrassed publicly about it. But either way, I thought it was pretty funny that he wouldn't rule out extraterrestrials for that. And it's become more and more common to see public officials speaking to UAPs, as they're now called them. I think they changed the name maybe to remove some of the stigma from UFO, because people were afraid to report UFOs because it made you sound like a crazy person. I don't know if you remember I think it was the 2008 presidential campaign, Dennis Kucinich was running as a Democrat, and he was one of the reasonable Democrats. He's still more like a real social Democrat, but even back then, at least he valued some of the good values that espoused some of the good values that Democrats back then supported. But anyway, they quickly removed him from the Democrat primary by asking him a question because he had seen a UFO. He said he'd seen a UFO like years ago, and they asked him about it. And when he said, "Well, yeah, I did see something, and I don't know what it was," and he described the scene, and then next thing you know, the national press is like, Kucinich is a crazy man who believes in tinfoil UFOs. He's a tinfoil hatter. But from that was just 15 years ago to now, and you've got people at the high levels of the U.S. government saying, yes, we do have unexplained aerial phenomenon, that they're making, physically impossible moves that we don't understand, that would kill a human being if they were to do it. We don't know what these things are. And the other day on Joe Rogan, he was talking to Bill Ottman, and I forget the name of the individual that they played the recording of, but he was a high level U.S. official who essentially admitted, yes, we have alien spacecraft that we have captured and are reverse engineering, but I can't talk about that. And so it's really getting out there in the open. Who knows if he's just saying that? He could be saying that. You think about the Cold War, the kind of nonsense that both sides spouted off to one another to make each other think that they were tougher than they are. Who knows? It could just be posturing like that. But the fact is, it's getting out there. People are talking about it, and the U.S. government is acknowledging its existence, which, as you said, it's like when Fox News and NPR agree, when the Republicans and Democrats agree, I become suspicious. When the alien UFO community and the federal government agree, I start to become suspicious. Anybody else? that just me? Graboids, I thought they might be real. Thanks, Dustin, says Alvin.
Do you think that you familiar with the Attack on Titan? Mm-hmm. Okay, I've had a theory, and if you're not familiar with it, what Attack on Titan is, it's an anime. You're going to have to look up some just snippets of it on your own to kind of get a feel for it. I've always had this idea because I watched season 1, but I didn't get beyond that because it just didn't capture me. It's okay. It's whatever. But I had this feeling the whole time I was watching it that this was actually just high quality vor.
What is that?
It's porn in which you desire to be eaten or you want to eat someone else. Carnivore. It's short for carnivore porn. But anyway, it involves people eating each other. There's a classic case in one spot where a guy in some other country ate another dude's leg. But it was willing because the guy wanted him to do it. And there's another one where a dude ate another's genital because he wanted him to do it. It's like a sensual thing where people are into eating other people. But anyway, Attack on Titan to me looks like mainstream accepted animated vor. And I'm wondering now, since that is something that didn't exist at the creation of the movie Tremors, if there are any weirdos out there that are looking back on fond memories of Tremors going, man, those worms sure are hot.
I had no idea where you were going to take that, and I'm not surprised. What's up, Smarty Pants? Glad to have you with us. Welcome to the area. I'm not familiar with any cattle mutilation incidents in this area. If you think you're coming down from New Jersey, you got the Jersey Devil up there killing cattle. I don't know if they kill cattle, but whatever they're doing out there. But that was an X-Files episode in the first episode in the first season too. You saw a UFO on the way to North Carolina. Do you have cattle mutilations here also? I don't know. I do have. I see a lot of UFOs. Like I used to actually record them, but I see them so commonly now. Like I walked out the other day. And, satellites have particular paths, and they don't produce their own light, so you only see them when they catch the light from the sun. So typically if they're approaching the setting sun, they'll get brighter as they, go to the west, or they'll get dimmer as they go to the east. So I'll see these that'll be so tiny you can barely see them, but they have a light, and they're, it's the middle of the night. They're all the way on the opposite side of the earth from the sun. It's like pretty unlikely that it's a satellite catching reflections, but I guess it could be. But regardless, I see so much stuff around here, and I've seen so much low flying stuff that it all just looks like balls of light to me. Have you guys ever seen anything in particular that has any more definition than that? I've only seen balls of lights that I could say, okay, this doesn't have the required FAA aircraft lights on it. Okay, sometimes I can say, well, this one doesn't have a green light, but it does have a red and white light, so it appears to be a military craft of some sort. Or sometimes you just see one big white light. That's it. It's a big white light. I've got a video.
Yeah, it's far enough away to where I can't really tell any defining features besides it's giving off light. But usually, everything I see has a very erratic movement that nothing that we tangibly know in the air can move like that. Because everything's usually linear, it's going somewhere. But whenever something's jumping around, like squirrels, it's jumping from here to here to here to here to here. It's going all over the place, or it sits there and makes like doodly kind of things in the sky, and it just.
Now, have you seen has anybody seen the Starlink satellites? Mm-hmm. And they look like years ago that would have been a UFO. They're like a string of them.
There's like 6 of them around.
Yeah. They're pretty wild looking, but it's totally different stuff. And I see satellites all the time too, so I'm familiar with what a satellite looks. Well, that's what's going to say. The one I saw that I got really good. I mean, it's possible. That's the only other thing I could think of that it would be a drone.
Have you seen the drone that looks like the bell?
Mm-mm.
There's a little drone I saw. I think it was like a TikTok video that it looks like the Hitler bell, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a time machine, the Gluco, or whatever they called it. And but they have a drone that essentially looks like a bullet or a bell, and that's how it flies. It flies,
I'll show you one I recorded. This is from off my back porch here.
Why couldn't you make
6 years ago?
That's what I'm saying. Why couldn't you make a drone huge?
Like this perfectly spherical object, or it appears perfectly spherical. It appeared that way to the naked eye. It appeared that way under magnification, and it appeared that way under regular vehicle, regular zoom. But this thing just slowly went across the sky. It seemed to be quite far away. So if it was a drone, it had to be a very, very bright drone. And, how far could a drone that bright fly without, using at that kind of altitude with that kind of light, making that kind of, moving that distance. It's unlikely that it was any kind of commercial drone that, people around here might be able to have. But I've also seen a lot of other aircraft go that way and then disappear up over the lake, and I've even seen one go down and appear to disappear into the lake. So I've seen a lot of crazy stuff around here, Smarty Pants. So wouldn't be surprised if you look over to your western sky and see a lot of things up in these old Appalachian mountains. There's lots of facilities in the United States with mountains where there are, these DUMBs, these deep underground military bases that are built into the mountains. It requires less tunneling and stuff. You just go right in to the caves that are already started under there, and you tunnel out a complex, and there's a lot of that going on. And that seems like a good time to get into the booms. Have you guys heard any of these booms in this area recently?
I've heard booms and stuff.
Yeah,
yes.
I've heard a couple of booms myself, and these are just ones that have been reported over the police scanners that have been reported to the police. But you see them here, Piney Flats, Johnson City, all the way up to Glade Spring, Abington, up here in Big Stone Gap, and like you can imagine that might be like mining or something. But I think it's possible. There's all kinds of, there's lots of tunneling companies, but where are all the tunnels being dug? They have to be dug somewhere. And there's a pretty big network of underground caves in this area too. The U.S. Geological Study survey did a study on them in the 1960s, and there's caves that extend all the way from like Stony Creek up to the lake, and a lot of these caves are interconnected. Where you got Worley's Cave over in Bluff City, and you got the Hampton Cave and the Okolona Cave and several other around here that are interconnected. What do you call it? What's that cave over on Rockhouse Road Cave? Now that one I believe they've got blocked off by the water department or power department or something has it blocked off over there. But there are several entrances to this cave system, and it goes all over the area.
Largest, I think, is in Kentucky, isn't it?
Yeah, but the Mammoth Cave system is never even. I don't think they've even reached the end of it. I think they keep.
It's probably connected to us on some level.
See how long Mammoth Cave is. Let's see, 400 miles of it are explored, and they estimate there may be another 600 miles. So that's a good sized cave system. Let's see if I can pull up a map. I doubt I can pull it up quickly. U.S. Geological. Came tops. I don't know if we can find it this easy or not. Nope, probably not.
Bristol Caverns is pretty cool for a cave that's just very accessible to people that don't feel like doing any kind of dirty work at all.
Mm-hmm. These ones are pretty awesome. We've got a lot in Carter County that are really, really cool. I've been in several of them myself. And this is the one that Tennessee did, geological study that Tennessee did with mineral resources and caves. Let's see if we can find anything interesting in this. Well, they'll give you this report, and then they'll give you a discount on the Bell Witch story if you get it. Let's see here. It might take too long to dig through this data to find the stuff that we're interested in, really. It's a pretty sizable report. Let's see here. Fentress County, that's where Sean's coming. To the chicken cult.
Hell yeah. Send me a chicken when you get there, since they got so many.
I don't know what any of this stuff means here.
So does that mean there'll be a merging of the chicken and the cigarette cult?
It could be.
I'm not prepared to give up any freedoms of the said cigarette tribe just yet. I would never do that to you good folks. I would never betray your trust. But if the chicken group wants to merge forces and, give their undying support to the cigarette cult in pure subordination, we would be willing to take them in as, for a lack of a better word, servants chicken servants to the cigarette cult. And we will give them, in return, free cigarettes. They will give us chicken dinners.
And eggs.
To me.
Let's see what we got here.
I would like the eggs, and I would also like 1 chicken beak of the strongest rooster per year. I know it sounds barbaric, but we got to have some kind of order and ritual.
Why not use the spurs?
Is that less painful on the rooster or something?
No.
What do you mean? What is it more painful? Are you a sadist?
No, I'm saying if you're going to do some kind of crazy ritual, you'd want the rooster's weapon, wouldn't you?
Well, I like the beak.
Okay. Well, what do you got in mind for it?
What are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
We're probably going to make jewelry out of it.
Okay.
Some sacred amulet that we can trick a shaman. At some point in time, we'll find like a local hobo or a homeless person and convince everybody that they're a shaman. All of us in the Sig cult will know this is just a crazy vagabond we picked up on the side of the road. Now we're going to convince everybody that's not in on the know that this is actually our shaman, and we're just going to keep him geeked up on all kinds of weird drugs all the time. So he's like, whoa, looks like the wild kid off the wild thornberries. Everybody be like, man, you've seen the cigarette cult? They got a wild leader. Everybody like, haha, it's actually just our pet.
You really thought this out.
Okay, what it's going to be, you're going to use the rooster's beak. You're going to make cod pieces. You're going to call them pecker peckers.
Here we go. And we can like line multiple pecker beaks up together for men who are large. Well, I hope everybody in the cult would need more than 1 rooster beak. But I'm not going to be judgy if you don't. We'll line them up. It'll look like almost like chainmail armor.
It'll be like the dragon scale armor.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like dragon scale armor made of rooster beaks for your junk.
Oh man! So join us. Join us now. The so yeah. Long story short, Smarty Pants. No, they're not brothers or twins. Not genetically, anyway. Long story short, Smarty Pants. So we most of the cattle mutilations in Appalachia were in like West Virginia, Alabama, and Georgia. I don't know of a lot reported right around here, but they, like I said, they do go back a long ways. But what we can talk about that was around here is I come across in one of my books that Tim hates so much.
Wants talons.
No, she wants talons. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times
Talons,
people.
okay. Well, we can do talons too.
A lot of times people will, if they have a pet rooster, they'll remove the spurs and stuff to keep it, because if it gets, that's, you know, sometimes people will get attacked by the roosters, and if it's like a pet rooster, they don't want to kill it or anything, they'll cut them off, and that's kind of mean to the rooster too. But you know, just throw that sucker in the pot. I was working one day, and there was a rooster loose in Johnson City.
Oh,
and
yeah. Oh no!
It was a big old rooster. It looked like the killer.
It's like a very, very mild scale of Jurassic Park.
Oh no! What a rooster!
Well, apparently no. This rooster was angry, and it was chasing people around. And,
There's not some salty old man around to kick it for me.
Well, I was talking to this old. I don't know how old he was. He was older. Seemed like, I'll just say, I guess, gay black guy. I guess is what he seemed like anyway. But he was like, that thing got after me yesterday. He said, I told it if it gets after me again, I'm gonna put it in my crock pot. And so I went over there a couple days later, and he said somebody had come and got it, but he said his threat still stood to that rooster. If it came back, he was going to put it in the crock pot. But
How dumb chickens really have to be. I mean, really think about this. Mice can smell a cat. That's how epigenetically they are. Like, they know. They're terrified, right? Like, all these animals know what their predator is. I've given the snake representation with our high-low system and the amygdala. There's things that are burned into us. We've basically been cannibalizing the chicken for all of recorded history. And chickens haven't learned to stay away from us yet. They'll actually pick fights with people.
yeah, well, a lot of times chickens are roosters in particular. They're protective of their ladies. They want to mate with them some more, so they don't want them to get eaten. So a rooster will actually, and I guess they're probably protective of their offspring too, because
Don't eat my baby.
they'll actually they're protective of the ladies, because they will even sacrifice themselves for a predator so that the ladies can get away. So the rooster's a pretty brave guy. That may have something to do with why he might attack humans. But the what I was going to get into next was these. Did you know that the U.S.
Chicken got a dick bone.
Did you know that the U.S. Forest? I don't know. I don't know.
If I have a rooster got a dick bone,
I don't know. Is
you
it,
pick your teeth with it.
a lot of insects, they only have to fertilize. They only have to have sex once, and then the female will stay fertilized. And in some insects, they don't even have to have sex, so they can fertilize themselves. But
chickens.
I wonder if a chicken
Birds.
has to, if a bird has to have sex every time, or it gets fertilized once, and then can just lay eggs.
Say so. Mammal's uterus is.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure birds.
Birds
they
totally
work.
different. The frogs, though.
A lot of like chickens, they have to have a rooster around before they brood and lay eggs.
Yeah.
But not every bit. 90% of those eggs are unfertile, which are the ones that.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. Is do they have to, before they start laying eggs, do they have to be stimulated to lay eggs? But
There's just something about.
I'm just talking
having
out my ass here, too.
sexy stud around.
I ain't gonna do it.
Well, anyway, off of chickens, why does the Forestry Service?
Stimulate the chicken.
Why does the United States Forestry Service operate 105 millimeter howitzers? You remember those? You remember those stairways in the woods we were talking about?
Is it avalanches?
Yeah, it
what
is.
it's
Yeah, man, you got my.
Well, I was guessing like you asked me what it's for, and I'm like, I got these big ass cannons for the foresters, so it has to be avalanches.
Yeah, that's actually what it's for, but that's what they say it's
Or
for.
they're for the big troll monsters that they don't.
That's what I'm
tell you
saying. What do you think is coming out of these staircases that take you to nowhere in the woods? That they on the the Reddit creepy
that the sketchy
stuff.
person that tells you to come into the woods in the middle of the night's going to take you to.
Yeah, we did a show on this. It's kind of one of our bigger episodes. I think wasn't that the one where we talked about feral humans? We talked about stairways in the woods.
I don't remember.
I think it
they were a
is.
different episode.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, we talked about stairways in the woods.
They were close in number. They were close to each other, like a week or two apart.
Okay.
Because the first
Well, that's
feral
it.
humans,
Feral people are the ones
I
living
wouldn't-
on them stairs.
You think?
Feral stoop kids just sitting there. Get away from me.
Let's see what episode it was we talked about that, because it's been a while ago. It's one of the first episodes for sure. It was definitely before we started doing live.
Oh!
Let's see. Oh, it was the same one. Yeah, the feral people of Appalachia and stairways to the heavens. Yeah, we were talking about stairways in the woods.
Pre-golf.
Yeah, no, that was just he was here in the second one. That was before he was able to do it every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we moved to Sunday nights, he was able to do it more. So when we got the live show started. But yeah, we talked about it, what, all these different stories of people reporting, particularly Forestry Service personnel, that now, it could have been a story that was just made for Reddit, because it was kind of, I think it was in the no sleep or the creepy zone of Reddit or something. But so many people chimed in that a lot of people started thinking, well, maybe there is something to this. Because the OP was saying that they were a Forestry Service trainee in a certain area, and as they were, looking for a missing person, the experienced Forestry Service person who they were working with said, come on, we're going to go look right here. This is almost where we always find people. And they go out there, and there's a set of stairs in the woods that the OP he finds, and he feels compelled to climb. And when he does, he kind of feels like he's being transported somewhere away. And when he stands on the top of them, he feels like he's just kind of going to in another world. And then he claims that his trainee kind of grabs him and pulls him off there and says, no, you don't go near these things. You don't talk about them. And again, it was posted in a section of Reddit where people a lot of times just make up creepy stories. But then, as I said, the comments kept going, and then the person, the OP, came on and did another. It's like, hey, I wasn't really expecting this to take off like this, but since y'all are asking, here I'm going to answer these questions, and talked about a lot of the crazy ways that they found people in search and rescue. And it was a lot of the stuff that would become famous really with the missing 411. People found on a cliff, like a kid found up on a cliff where there's no way he could have got up there by himself. Tracks leading to the bottom of a cliff, and then coming back out on the top, and they're not able to figure out how the person got up there. All kinds of weird stuff, and a lot of people that never got found. And these staircases were said to be found in the vicinity of them. There's lots of them out there. Places where houses stood in the woods and were torn down, and so a lot of people have a lot of different explanations for it, but pretty creepy stuff out there, especially if you're walking along and you find one, because I've found them a few times, and most of the time they seem to be from houses that were, no longer there. Because sometimes you'll see chimneys and stuff too, just standing out in the middle of the woods. So and you think when you see these things, I'm so far from civilization, particularly as you go on to places like the Lost Cove in Unicoi or near Unicoi. Think about how far away that is from, how long you'd have to walk to get anywhere from there. And that's one of those towns that when they moved the railroad out, the town died back, I think it was the 50s.
Yeah.
So a lot of rational explanations for why they would be there, but there are those tales of these things that come out of there, and perhaps that's what the Forestry Service is operating these 105 millimeter big guns for. Maybe they.
At some point in time in my life, I don't know if you have time for this story or not, but
Look here. Somebody said Wendigos and old ones. This comment.
Hey, that.
Why does the Forestry Service use these weapons? And he says Wendigos and old ones. Sorry, Tim. Go ahead. Tell us the story. Go ahead. Like Lovecraftian old one.
a Forester Service person had to pick a fleshlight up out of the forest. That's the story. They found it probably next to some trees. It wasn't used. Long story short, a fella I knew decided he was going to, I don't know, he was pranking. It seemed like there was some maliciousness behind it, so he was going to try to plant sex toys on this girl's car to embarrass her or something like that. And I guess he wasn't thinking at the time what a girl was doing with a fleshlight by herself. So anyway, he ended up not using that because all his friends were like, wait, he's trying to make everybody think she's a lesbian because what's she going to do? Have all these like dildos in the pocket vagina with it. So anyway, it ended up being left in my car. And I didn't know it until I happened to see like the street lights will come down.
A likely story, Tim.
Like the street light comes down like a zip, I saw it like a square line come down to my floorboard, and there it was. And I'm like, shit. And I'm driving up the road, Stony Creek, if anybody that knows me needs a timeline for this. So I just happened to grab some napkins. I always keep those with me because, spill a lot of stuff.
Never know when you're going to have a
Reach
used
down the
fleshlight in the floorboard.
This thing is not even used.
Yeah,
I still don't want to touch it because I didn't like the way it felt because it was that cyber skinny stuff. But I'm a prude, especially when I was, right out of my teen years. And I grabbed that sucker and I went like this, hey, like that. And I don't know if it cut it or not, but the way it hit the stop sign, it made a sound I must hear again because it hit the edge and went like that way. It sounded like a wet pickle. It sounded like a wet pickle rolling off aluminum. That's the best way I can describe it. It went when it hit the stop sign. But that thing got some air. So at some point in time, some poor fellow was cutting corn or whatever I threw that into, and they probably chopped up a pocket vagina.
This segment was brought to you by Tammy's Dildos. Now,
Defunct, sued by a Bolivian company.
Now, actually, I'm ashamed to admit this, but when Tammy's Artisanal Toys, when y'all viewers kept using our promo code, our IMH10, to get 10% off of her products there at Tammy's Artisanal Toys, you kept going to Tammy'sDildos.com. And so since Tammy still actually had a login for this domain, she was able to see that you all were buying these products from her competitor, Tammy's Dildos. So she stopped funding us, stopped promoting her. That's why we haven't been promoting her on our program. But I'm pleased to announce that her competition, Tammy's Dildo, has hired us. So definitely go to Tammy'sDildos.com and check out all those beautiful wares.
Join them.
That's right. So thanks for the $5. But sorry, Tammy. Sorry.
It's business.
Yeah. Just business, nothing personal. But back to we were talking about the booms, we were talking about the stuff in the stairs.
Big bada boom.
Yeah, we were trying to bring it back here a little closer to him. That's right. Bada boom. Bada boom. So I have a book here.
Well, we're still using shoelaces.
I like shoelaces.
Shoelaces are a garbage invention. Velcro should have replaced them years ago, but we all think they're childish. Perhaps buckles are a little too piratey. I don't know. But I'm just saying, shoelaces come untied every single day. And I'm just saying, they're an obsolete invention. We should replace them all with Velcro. I don't care if it makes you feel like you're 6.
I prefer
It
shoelaces,
obsoletes the
man.
shoelace.
Most of the time, I'm wearing slip-on boots, so I negate
Good
both of them.
choice. I like a slip-on shoe. I wore the Toms forever until they completely destroyed my back. But I have a lot of shoes that are slip-ons. These are not. These are work boots that are all laced up and everything. And I'm sitting there looking at these, and I'm going, these are steel-toed work boots that a man who should be more manly than me would wear on a daily basis. And these things have laces. Give the guy Velcro, and he's never going to break his neck, is all I'm saying.
Well, I prefer laces
Shoelaces
myself.
stuck. I really do that.
So did y'all ever think about what Johnson City was like? Like, this is 100 years ago. So this is talking about 1887, 1888. And this is, I got a little book here from the Johnson City Historical Society. And we're going to go over to stateoffranklin.net. We're going to look at some pictures of old Johnson City. But
Take her to Johnson City.
that's right. I'm going to give her a ride to Johnson City, boys. Is that special night? Let's see. I can't believe nobody ever said that when we were in high school. It just seems like something that so many of the people that I knew in high school would
If you
say.
said that to a girl, she'd expect you to take her to the mall and buy dinner or something.
No, I'm just saying I can't believe that I never heard a young man say that to another young man, that he was going to give a girl a ride to Johnson City.
Johnson was definitely well. It wasn't really our word though. It was the generation ahead of us that used the
Big Johnson, give her the Johnson. Well, back in the early days of Johnson City, this is Johnson's Depot, where the train came through. And the town of Jonesboro had been around for 100 years before this. So Johnson City was pretty new, and they called it stuff like Mudtown or Mudville, because Johnson City still had dirt streets everywhere. Downtown Johnson City, like here, this is the Market Street area there.
It looks a little flat.
Yeah.
I don't look real. Looks wrong. Doesn't it? Gen X called it a Johnson. Us hillbillies from Unaka, born in the 80s, called it a
This is the hill where the if you're looking down, this is Market Street going towards the east side, and then this is the hill up there right before the hill where the dump is. The hill for the dump would be like right back here. So I think this is where like the bicycle trails are and stuff. But what was there to do? I mean, they didn't have they didn't have football, basketball. They did have baseball. The Johnson City Reds, I think it was.
Mud wrestling team.
Yeah, I bet they did.
Nobody's ever carved a hole in clay mud and had their way with it.
I'm sure they have, Tim. Probably one of these guys.
I went too hard.
This is the Science Hill Debating Society from 1869.
Clay mud's pretty silky, that's all I'm saying.
It's pretty. I mean, I don't know. It's got a lot of sand in it too. It's got some coarseness in it too. Yeah, these guys look old for high schoolers, don't they? They're from Science Hill Debating Squad.
They're supposed to be high schoolers because they're away.
Well, there's the Science Hill Academy, so they could have been college age too.
That's the teachers.
But
College age, they look 40.
Yeah, they did.
Look at this guy here.
Have this
I like his hat.
You have like two Abe Lincoln looking sons of bitches on
Yeah,
this.
we're gonna call this guy old neck to chin beard. He's got his swagger hat on.
Yeah, he does. Well, all these guys are part of the Science Hill Debate Society, and Science Hill, the debating, that was one of the big things they had down. They had Job's Opera House, is what it was called, but it was, I'm pretty sure, if I understand it correctly, that it was where here it is, Job's Opera House. From 1884 to 1905, this was across from, or it looks like it was across from, looks like over there at Spring Street in Tipton's. Yeah, this is Freiburg's now. Yeah. So the Job's would have been across from it. So if you're looking out the window, if you're eating dinner at Freiburg's, the German restaurant in Johnson City, you can look out and see where that was, right across the street. What is there now? I don't think it goes out that far now, does it?
Apartments.
Yeah, there's the People's Community Bank, and then there's the apartments that go way up high.
Korean talk.
Yeah, that's where the Mecca used to be, right here, I guess.
It's like a little shoe store. Is that Red Maze or is that
Red Maze? Yeah, I think it's Turkish food. I can't remember.
I'll go try that next. I tried that.
It looks pretty good.
Place over there the other day for the first time. So they got the two menus. One of them is just Chinese, and the other one is light your stomach on fire.
Yeah.
Sichuan. I survived it. I did really good with it.
I've not tried that. They also called the Johnson City Tank Town because they had the big tank that they were famous for the trains to stop and steam engines to stop and fill up. And you can see the mud streets there, and you know, there's that railroad card back here
Did
in
we
the
not
back.
invent grass until like 200 years ago, or what?
Well, I mean, if you walk on it, if you have wagons and horses on it all the time, it's not going to
the
keep.
Wild West.
It's not going to stay grass. It was the Wild West, buddy, but it was the Wild East. The Wild West is the Appalachian Mountains.
What the hell? Like, why does everything look so disgusting? Like, even
Well,
Market Street.
they also had just got there too. Jonesboro. That's one of the reasons they made.
They just got here. That's exactly right. Why people invented grass? That's what you're telling me. Like, why is every picture of the founding of the United States? It looks muddy as shit.
Because it took them a while to build towns. Jonesboro had been there for about 100 years before this, and so they had nice paved sidewalks and towns, so streets. And a lot of people would actually take their if they were going on a date or something, they would go down to Jonesboro and go down there. But they had
grass on mud.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing was they had Science Hill right when Johnson City was established. Science Hill had been around before then, and they had a law saying that you couldn't have a tavern within, I think it was 4 miles of a school or an iron foundry, because they didn't want you contributing to the delinquency of miners, and they didn't want the iron workers to get drunk and fall in the molten iron. So they'd
have some fun looking Damascus then.
Yeah.
I don't have any theories on this whatsoever. It's just an observation. What is wrong with us as people? For example, if you go out west and you go to like the old town of Tombstone, which they did not film the movie in at all, by the way. The way they've got the town built is they know it's desert, so they build all these wooden shitty buildings, but they recognized that it's a gross place, so every building has like a step down and then big planks of wood that go out like 5 to 6 feet that people walk on. And then a giant space for all the horses to poop and shit in it and people to walk on. It's like there's a separation before the buildings. If you go to San Francisco, if you go to this all this stuff right here, I'm just saying, why are all these bigger cities, if they can figure out in little dumb gold mining towns like Tombstone, why could we, like San Francisco and Johnson City, not figure out that your customers probably shouldn't walk out of this amazing ornate building that obviously took a lot of time to build and walk straight into mud?
Well, they did.
Sidewalks not existing 5 years ago.
They put streets and sidewalks in pretty soon after that.
They had rock.
But a lot of people
Why
weren't.
not build a street first?
A lot of people were not accustomed to streets, so it was.
Well, people were stupid. Then that don't make no sense because they had streets in London and everywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you're going to build a nice brick and concrete structure, and then just expect people to walk in mud and come on inside to our nice structure covered in mud.
I guess that's what people were used to. So the first thing was get the structure, and then the second thing was get it paved, and which they did not too long afterward. Let's see, they got down to the public square that they put in the 1890s. That where they paved that area. There's the railroad depot.
But look at that building. Surrounded by mud. Hadn't invented grass yet. I just don't get it.
Grass is the devil.
They couldn't have like spaced off a little spot and said, "Hey, and like collectively they didn't agree not to walk in one little spot."
There's the Carnegie Hotel. Apparently that's over where the Silver Spur is now, over near Millard Street and stuff.
Okay.
That's what a lady I talked to that works at the new Carnegie Hotel, she told me that's where the old one was over near the Silver Spur on the east side of Johnson City.
Huh.
Did y'all know, you know how everybody, they have prayer meetings on Wednesday nights, or, you know, the Wednesday night Bible studies and stuff like that. That's pretty much where everybody has their Bible study night around here. I don't know if it's like that worldwide or nationwide, but in this area, pretty much every church has service Sundays and Wednesdays. And apparently, back when Johnson City first came out or became founded, there was like 4 churches there, and there was a few in Jonesboro, and they had a prayer meeting on Friday nights. Well, the Jonesboro people, they liked that preacher so much they wanted him to come down there Friday nights too. And they're like, well, fine, we'll just move our prayer meeting to Wednesday. And then all the other ones in Johnson City did, and all the other ones followed suit. And they were basically trying to, it was all because that preacher was so popular, but he couldn't be in one place at one time, and everybody wanted him for 4 nights a month. But anyway, that was one thing I got to. So going to church was the thing that a lot of them did, because what I was getting to with the thing, they couldn't have taverns around because of the schools and the iron foundries. So they actually gave up their charters, and so did Jonesboro, so that they could actually ban liquor, and then ended up, coming back after Prohibition. But a lot of these places, it had speakeasies and stuff like that all along.
Is this tampered with, or has this been vanilla skied, so to speak, because there's a history behind that too?
What's that?
This is postcard shaped.
Oh yeah, it could be a postcard now. I don't know.
Because what they would do with postcards is they would have people with X-Acto knives come in and cut the sky out, because then they could change the text above it.
Oh yeah, that could be possible. Yeah.
I was wondering if that was cloudless.
Most of these, they have a postcard, like they have it listed as a postcard.
Mm-hmm. Which would explain the vanilla sky. A lot of times they're cutting out the power lines and stuff too, because they think they're ugly.
Yeah. Well,
nothing new.
Back then,
Still being done.
we had
Photos a lot of times.
a lot of the places your currency was actually based on gold and silver back then. So if you deposited some gold in the bank, then the bank would actually give you a note that you could redeem at other local establishments, that they could then take to the bank. It was basically like writing a check. The gold was actually your actual money, and this $10 deposit. See, it says we'll pay $10 to the bearer on demand in cash. It said this note is secured by bonds of the United States or other securities. So basically, it was you deposited the gold into the bank, and they secured it under a federal charter, and then they, could trade your gold between the bank whenever you passed this note around. But there was a lot of different local currencies that in your different areas. So if you banked in one area, like it was like the Templar banking that Alvin talked about. It's like you deposit your gold here, and then you take it to another establishment, and you trade the note in and get your gold out wherever you are. So let's see, what did they do for entertainment? Well, they would go to Job's Opera House that I showed you earlier, and there would be debates. They would watch some opera there. It wasn't actually an opera house, although there was
West Market Street.
we looked at that earlier. Stage Road.
I get the muddy street. I get the dilapidated board that goes down into the fence or whatever. But is all of it farmland?
A lot of it was, yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine. Let's dig up all the grass. It's just, I don't understand. It don't look that muddy around.
When you walk on grass, Tim, it turns to mud. And when you roll stagecoaches,
shit, it's just a whole state full of people just walking around. Their yards.
Yeah, and that's not their yards; it's the streets. When you roll stagecoaches and horses constantly up and down the streets and load stuff in and out of trains,
I'm mixing
the grass goes away.
All these all these old photographs together, and it just seems to me that maybe it only happened as Americans in the last 50 years that we figured out, hey, wait a second, maybe we shouldn't just have mud everywhere.
Here's Benjamin Harrison.
It's just so muddy. I don't get it. It just looks so unnecessary. No, I'm hung up.
You do realize that they didn't have muddy streets in places where the cities had been around long and they'd had the time to construct those streets. Right?
I'm saying us as Americans aren't bright. Because look at all these ornate, just like massive buildings that are like ivory towers, and they didn't put a street down first. So all the people that are going into said ivory tower are definitely taking mud on their feet into there. They're taking it into the churches. I'm just saying, what are you going to do? You're going to build a house and then be like, dirt floor's fine. I'm saying old people seem pretty stupid in ways that I just can't logically reason out.
I think they were. I think they were more concerned with the structures than the streets. And once they got the streets and the structures in place, the streets followed slowly thereafter, shortly thereafter.
How could they build those magically just amazing brickwork buildings and they couldn't figure out that all this clay mud all over them shit was bad?
Maybe it was the mud flood.
Maybe there was a mud flood. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just positing that people kind of do things out of order.
Well, why would you have streets? Why would you have streets if there was no buildings to go into?
I'm fine.
Why would you need a street if there's no building to go into?
Well, I get that, but what I'm saying is now there's buildings and everybody just went, this is fine. Just looking at just soupy mud everywhere. And nobody ever thought, maybe we should do something.
Well, look, it took them 20 years.
20 years. That's a long time to be rolling around in mud. Like
18 years to pave it with bricks. So.
And they did it with bricks. The Romans had concrete. Why didn't they use concrete?
You know, you can find houses in Johnson City that are built with these bricks that are still these original bricks from 1908. I ran into them all the time. The Portsmouth Brick Company, I think they were calling it.
There's bricks left down there, is there?
There are some over here in the Fountain Square area, but I've seen them. People have them doing their patios at their house, and some of the houses are made of them. It's pretty cool. But what else did they do? Well, one of the things that they did was there was a lot of resorts in the area. And so there was one in Roan Mountain. Did you know this Cloudland Hotel was a 160-room hotel accommodating up to 1,000 people at the top of the mountain in Roan Mountain? Did you know that was a thing?
No, I did not.
I never knew that either. In Jonesboro, the Jonesboro Affair attracted people from all around, and it started in 1870. And they had... a culture exhibit with a tribe of Indians on there for people to talk to and learn from, and there was an ice cream parlor too that was really popular down at Jonesboro, and it was the ice cream parlor of W.G. Mathis and Brother is a very popular resort for the young people in Johnson City. The young fellow who wouldn't take his girl to Mathis when it only cost 20 cents for ice cream or strawberries or both is just too mean to have a girl, it said in the 1885 Johnson City or the Jonesboro Comet. They didn't have radios, they didn't have phonographs, they didn't have tape recorders, they didn't have a lot of things, but they did go and they had a lot of secret societies or fraternal organizations. Particularly, they had the Odd Fellows and the Freemasons were the two biggest ones. The Odd Fellows had two lodges, the Independent Order of Odd Fellows for white brethren and the Grand United Order of Odd Fellows for the blacks. And there was the Knights of Honor, the Sons of Temperance, and the Odd Fellows had the Rebecca's Lodge for their womenfolk. Then there was the Confederate Camp, the Johnson City Guards, the Johnson City Military Volunteers, and the Taylor Riflers. These are all fraternal orders in the area. And there was only like there was 5 white churches and 3 black churches in Johnson City. So you go back that long, we had 8 churches already back then, and they just...
Black, white, all of them had red feet. Didn't matter.
That's true, they did. That's true, they did. So there wasn't a whole lot to do, but there was the debating society was really popular. People lecturing at the Opera House, that was really popular. Plays, stand-up comedy, kind of, it wasn't called stand-up comedy at the time, but orations, who would come through. There did have a bowling alley and a pool hall, or a couple pool halls down there, and they'd have come to have, which makes me wonder, has Newman's been a pool hall since the beginning of Johnson City? I don't know, but I bet you the owners of Newman's could tell us about that. Dan and Jan Newman, they've owned it for a long time. I'd say they know a lot about the history of it, and it'd be really cool to find something out about that, because it's been, when I went there, I started going there when I was 15, 16, back in the mid-90s, and back then it was called the Chucky Trading Company, and it had been around for a long time then, and it seemed like it had been there forever. But yeah, that's I think that's about all we got for you tonight, folks. Let's check the chats out here, see if we got anything else for us here.
Down at the boardwalk.
Cobblestone, sort of, some of them. Yep, you're right. Oh, it froze up, so I hope it unfroze. Alvin says boardwalks. Wichita moved the old downtown to its area and has exactly what Tim is talking about because the cattle would be driven into town. Yeah, that used to be a when you had a lot less flood control back in the day, people would have, the river get flooded or pass get flooded, they'd have to take their cattle through town. So cattle ranching towns had that provision a lot of times.
I'm fine with that sort of thing. I just, it really did seem like we built cities not in a correct order. But I just went on a big diatribe about how I thought shoelaces were something we need to get rid of. I'm hung up a lot about the dumbest stuff because I'm convinced we can't fix the stuff that I could be mad about. So I'd spend most of my time being upset, like, why has the car tire not been reinvented yet? I know they say the wheel will never be obsolete because it's too usable as a shape or whatever, but we're still using the same tire as we've always used.
No,
that puzzles me too.
Well, they got rubbers like I guess the first ones were rubber, which were plant-based, and then they went to petroleum-based, which is really kind of plant-based too. But then now they're going back to a plant-based tire, they're saying, in some of these expensive ones.
Still a tire.
Yeah.
Just turn the wood post to a metal one. Low profile. Zany look. I just don't know why they've not. I've got nothing better. This is just what pollutes my brain.
Why don't they make asphalt wheels and rubber roads?
Well, that would be weird.
Let's see.
I don't know. I just don't understand why they haven't come up with a better tire.
You know, another thing that I meant to mention is the lake. You know, Cox Lake. Did you know there was a lake down? I've seen the meme map of Johnson City where it like names all the streets by, you know, what they ought to be named, and one of them is Lakeview, and it talks about where's the lake. Well, down there where all those condos are in Johnson City, there's a bunch of apartments and condos off of Lakeview Drive behind the Moose Lodge. Those places, there used to be a lake down there, a private recreational lake that people would go. It was called Cox Lake up in I think it was the 1950s when it was really popular. In the 1960s, I think they did away with it, but people go up there and boat and ski and stuff like that. Well, back before that, it was called Watazi Lake, or Watosi Lake, and it was a wooded area with a large lake, boating on the lake, an opportunity for picnics in the wooded area, and Johnson Cityans could board a trolley car downtown, and for a nickel, they could go out North Rome to Watauga, then to Oakland, and up Oakland out to Watazi Lake, so they could ride the trolley all the way down for a nickel, and go boating on the lake down there. So that's pretty cool. Why'd they get rid of the lake?
I had a theory on
For condos and apartments.
one of the last great mysteries of the ocean. And one of the last great mysteries of the ocean, they call it. It could be 150 more mysteries. Is rogue waves.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people see that Japanese picture, that big wave, and I think it's a tsunami. But like if you actually do this, they actually think it's a rogue wave, like one of the earliest depictions of a rogue wave. And they've measured some of those now. Like they still don't know what causes the rogue wave, but they know they can get over 115 feet, and they pop up seemingly for random reasons. And I got to thinking when you started talking about UAPs. What if that big 115-foot wave is just an aircraft leaving the ocean? And it just brings all the water up.
Well, there are a lot of reports of them going underneath the ocean and coming up out of the ocean, so it could be something. And maybe it's when the mothership leaves, it pushes that big rogue wave up. Yeah, I remember that movie, The Poseidon Adventure, and I think they made a remake of it just called Poseidon, but it was kind of based on those rogue waves just kind of randomly coming in. The thing is, they're like silent and it's hard to detect them, and all of a sudden, there they are, 115 feet
I think
tall
that's
wave.
probably what the Bermuda Triangle was, just a home to a lot of rogue waves. So they don't really know what caused them. They've done like all kinds of experiments in small scale, trying to figure out if it's a combination of like wave currents hitting each other. If it's like, they'll fight each other if they come away, but if like wave patterns will actually build on each other if they go the same direction. They're trying to figure out if like maybe currents coming from different directions were all just converging into one big one that would make it rise up. But I don't know, those things are interesting to me. And now I'm thinking it's a big ship, kind of like the one at the end of what is that movie called? The Abyss. It's a big ship like that popping up over.
Man, I want to watch Leviathan now. I saw it's on Tubi, and I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I'd like to watch that. Well, I think that's about all we got for tonight. Thank you for joining us, Smarty Pants. Hope you'll come back. We're here every Sunday and Wednesday at 10 p.m. So everybody be sure, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Be sure and come back. A lot of y'all, when I look at our analytics, are not finding us from notification. You're finding us in your home feed. That's great. But if you set that notification bell, we only do 2 videos a week most of the time, so we're not going to be blowing you up in the middle of the day, dinging you all the time. What the hell was that? Oh, these assholes posted another YouTube video. I don't care. It's only going to be Sundays and Wednesdays at 10 p.m. So every once in a blue moon, I might post a short or something. But we are going to be doing a Second Amendment Appreciation Day again. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get some local people together and go out and shoot some firearms and talk about all that, how important that is, and how fun it can be too. So if that's something you're interested in, maybe you've never tried it before and you're local to us here, get in touch with us at the ironmountainhour@gmail.com. You can participate in this with us. We can come out and show you how to do it. We got a lot of stuff that would be easy for you to learn with and have a good time. and we'd love to have you join us. We're also going to do, we talked about doing it last year, but I really do want to do it this year because we didn't get it. I want to do some kind of a lake cleanup up here on Watauga Lake. So if anybody would be interested in joining me in that, email us at the ironmountainhour@gmail.com. We'll go up here and pick up some of this trash. It's supposed to be the cleanest lake in Tennessee, but it's pretty damn gross. And could always use a little help with that. Some of my favorite spots in it, since the lake has changed, have become trash coves. And we actually called one of my favorite spots now is me and B call it Styrofoam Cove because it's just become overrun with old styrofoam from boat docks, styrofoam cups, all kinds of just junk. And it used to be such a nice, clean place to go out there and sit and fish or, throw rocks or watch raccoons and bears or whatever. But, anyway, there's so much trash and it's hard to keep up with all of it, so we can do a little bit to help it out. I think it'd be a cool thing. So anyway, email us at the ironmountainhour@gmail.com if you'd like to join us in any of that. And Dustin's going to play us out here. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you Wednesday night when me and Tim get into the news and current events of the week. Thank y'all.
No other cult but the cigarette cult lets you in for free and never cult.
Cigarette cult.
Not every kitten.
Cigarette cult.
Our kittens.
Come and join the cigarette cult.
Cigarettes.
Cigarette.